Good morning. Let us pray. Almighty and ever-living God, ruler of all things in heaven and earth, hear our prayers for this parish family. Strengthen the faithful, arouse the careless, and restore the penitent. Grant us all things necessary for our common life, and bring us all to be of one heart and mind within your holy church. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. So today my hope is to just share some of the things that are going on at church, bring you up to date a little bit, answer your questions. The chapter gets lots of reports every month, and they are available technically to the parish. Not always easy to lay your hands on them, but most of you don't get that kind of detail. I'm not going to just regurgitate 3/4 of a year's worth of reports, definitely, but I'll just ramble on about a few things, and just put your hand up if there's something you want me to comment on right away. And again, I'm glad to try and answer any questions that you have. So we'll start with just St. Paul's is very much alive. You might have noticed almost all of our pre-pandemic ministries and activities are back up and in full flight. There are things going on here every day of the week, sometimes, often, multiple events. We've been very intentional about inviting outside groups to use our space and come in and find us. Sometimes we ask them for money and sometimes we don't. Kathleen has a wonderful sense of what's appropriate when she's negotiating space rental contracts with groups. But we have a lot of things going on of our own too, so that limits what we can do in terms of making the space available to those who are not part of the cathedral. All our services, well, not all our services, let's see. Our worship services are mostly back to pre-pandemic levels. I would love to add another weekday, midday Eucharist. We used to have 5, Monday to Friday, and we have just the Friday one now. We do have clergy who are ready and available to help, and if we can find people who would be sacristans, even just a weekday sacristan to help set up and support the clergy, we could add another one, at least a Wednesday Eucharist. It's very small attendance, but it means a great deal to some people to be able to come on a weekday and receive the Eucharist. Our morning prayer and evening prayer services used to happen in person in the church. During the pandemic, we took them onto Zoom, and they are much better attended than they were. I encourage any of you who would like to be part of a small prayer community to join us. Morning prayer is at 8 o'clock, Monday to Saturday, and evening prayer is at 5 o'clock, Monday to Friday. They are led by clergy or lay people. You don't have to have clergy there. And we have lovely conversations after we hear the readings. There are a lot of deep theological thinkers in our midst, and we get different perspectives. I was very sad that we had to let go of the Spanish language service. We just didn't get that congregation back after the pandemic, and I continue to hope and dream that someday God will reveal to us how we are to serve our Latino neighbors, whether it's in Spanish or English as a language of worship. Attendance, as I said, the morning and evening prayer attendance is booming. And we are steadily climbing back to our pre-pandemic attendance levels on Sunday mornings and Sunday evenings. I think today was the first time we've gone over 50 people at the 8 o'clock service. So that's moving along, and each Sunday the 10:30 seems to have more people. And we are attracting a lot of visitors and newcomers. So we're getting there. It's a slow process. People got very much into different habits during the pandemic, and in some ways it might be a healthy pruning, that people who just came out of habit and it didn't really mean an awful lot to them maybe have stopped and found other things to do. But we have a very enthusiastic and committed and engaged congregation, and I'm very grateful for that. I mentioned the activity, the pre-pandemic activities. In case you didn't know, we have somewhere between 70 and 80 different activities and ministries going on at the cathedral. So there's something for everyone. There's all kinds of different interests that are involved in offering time and talent. I mentioned newcomers. We're seeing great success with our evangelism ministry. We are overcoming the traditional Episcopal fear of the word and the activity of evangelism, turning it around into not something where you're beating people over the head, but an invitation and a breadth and a warmth. Our evangelism committee is thriving. I think we have about 20 people on it, led by Susan Jester, who's our very part-time evangelism minister. We have had several outings of distributing door hanger notices about our special events around the neighbourhood. About 95% are received positively. A couple of people don't like them, but can't please all the people all the time. And hopefully they don't, do some kind of burning ritual with the ones they get that they don't want, that simply cast them aside. But we are seeing newcomers arriving. The Blessing of the Animals had a record turnout this year. I think we must have had close to 200 animals, or over 200 people.
I got the word out.
And good, thank you, Donna.
I did. I went all over the city and I told people, I want you to take your animal to St. Paul's Episcopal. I'm making 6 for a blessing. And they said, what?
And it works. And the door hanger notices as well. We had a newcomer brunch earlier in the fall with a record turnout. 26, I think, I saw Jen hiding in the back there somewhere. I think it was 26?
26, it was record, it was phenomenal.
Yeah, that's been a long time since we've had that many newcomers show up to a newcomer brunch. So it's working, getting the word out, letting people know that we are here, our doors are open, our hearts are open. Just inviting people to come and experience God's love through this community is working. And that's very exciting to see. On the staffing side of the congregation, we have, it took us a while, but we managed to find 3 great sextons who are all part-time but work under Jen's direction, and she schedules them to overlap appropriately so that we're covered for all the events. Sometimes that can be a stretch when there are 2 or 3 things going on at once, and Jen works harder than any of them, I think. And Kathleen, of course, takes the lead on the hospitality and meals for events, which it wasn't part of her job, but everybody does what's needed, what we need to have done, and our staff work very well together. It's really a very small staff for the amount of events and the number of people that we serve. So we have our full complement of sextons, and we've just filled the spot for family ministry. As you might know, Kate Gould has joined our staff. She has a Master of Divinity degree. She has 2 kids of her own, one of them special needs. She has a lot of experience with teaching children and children of different ability levels and needs. And she has a natural inner authority. So she's just going to be splendid. Very, very pleased that she found us and we found her. And we'll be watching her developing ideas. Yes, Nancy?
How many hours is she paid?
I think she's 20 hours, or maybe 25,
25.
20. 25?
I think so.
Yeah, 25, so a little over half time. We'd love to have her full time, but maybe we'll get there someday. The big project immediately in her line of sight is Saturday's Trunk or Treat, which is one of those days when we have multiple events. There's a conference here at the same time as Trunk or Treat, 2 blocks away, with setup, of course, and snacks and everything. So a lot of work goes on to make these events happen, especially when there are multiples. So if you haven't yet signed up to decorate your car's trunk and hand out candy, please let Kate know if you'd like to do that. It's another great evangelism tool to the neighbourhood. It's very visible, very public, and we do spread the word all around this neighbourhood, and you'd be surprised at how many young families there are in our immediate neighbourhood. So we're getting there. I think we are now fully staffed, and please God, may it stay that way for a while. It's nice to have a stable staff. We all work together very well as a team, as I said. And we have a weekly meeting. On Tuesdays, the staff get together. We look at the calendar ahead. We communicate with each other about what's going on. We bounce ideas off each other. And on the second Tuesday of each month, it's a general meeting, and you're all invited to come. It's at 10 o'clock. You can sign in on Zoom or come in person to our second floor offices. And we'll do a round table of what's going on in each of our ministry areas, so that everyone has every opportunity to feel fully informed. Our music ministry, the jewel in our crown, continues to recover from the pandemic as well. You may know that all the performing arts were very badly hit by the pandemic, and our music ministry was no exception. Our children's choirs just had to stop completely for almost 3 years, and so now we're starting them back up again. It's like a brand new ministry, and when you think that program has been running along almost under its own steam for 100 years, and then to have it stop and have to have a restart, that's a huge effort. And Martin and Gabriel are working really hard at that. The last I heard, and this is a changing number, but the last I heard was that we have 16 children signed up so far, and it's a mix of boys and girls. Most of them are under 10 years old, and so they're not going to be ready for prime time just yet. They're learning the basics. Martin says some of them have got real talent and real potential, and he's very excited about what we'll hear in a couple of years. But I'm not sure. I'm hoping they may make some kind of public performance appearance this fall before Christmas, but that's up to him. He has great judgment about what the kids can do, and he's already expanded their rehearsals from once a week to twice a week, which really helps, the children to keep it in their heads, have it twice a week. That helps them to progress faster. On the adult choir side, we're also still recovering. There was a cultural shift during the pandemic, and a lot of people moved away from wanting to make long-term commitments, and especially if they were part-time. And so we lost several of our professional singers. We have, I think, 7 or 8 paid positions in the choir. And without those professionals who have the confidence and the technique to lead the others, we could not do the music we do. And I know that you all appreciate the level, the beautiful level of the music that we hear on Sunday mornings. Jane?
My sister visited me, and we went to evensong, and she said to me afterwards, she was so moved, and she said when they processed, she thought to herself, that's very many people. And then when she heard the music, she was just overcome. And she said to me on the way out, I never really thought about church. It'd be a good time.
Wow.
So it was really moved her so much.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah, the last 3 weeks at Evensong, we've had either just the men or just the women, and it's just been 6 voices, and they sound like 25 voices, and they sing really difficult music too. We are very blessed. So we're still trying to rebuild the section leader part of the choir to get back to its full glory. Martin is working with a lot of people who will do the substitute. They'll come in for 1 Sunday or 2. And it's hard to build when you don't have the continuity with the same people each week. But we remain hopeful. We boosted the hourly rate very significantly this year for the singers, which is an expensive thing to do, but it is starting to attract really excellent singers. And having them come as substitutes is also more expensive than having them on the payroll, on salaries. So it's a challenge, but it's worth it, I think. And if you've never been to Evensong, try just going on YouTube and watching the video of one of our Evensong services. We record them all, and then you'll want to come to it in person. It's a special feeling in the end of the day, the beauty of the light coming through the west window, and this very restful service. We don't do the Episcopal aerobics at Evensong that we do in the mornings. We don't make you stand up, sit down, stand up, go to the altar. You can just sit and let it wash over you. And it's a very beautiful and powerful experience. So we are blessed. And as you know, we are working to create a music center. The choir, for all that we love and value our choirs, the choir here has never had its own home in the campus. Or not a good home. It's had a scattered space with the vesting in the basement under the chapel down a rather scary set of stairs, not accessible. The practice room until the pandemic was a room on the second floor with no windows and no ventilation, which now we know we just can't do anymore. And the choir library is in this corner of the campus on the third floor. So it's very spread out. When people come to rehearse, children or adults, they have to find a room that's not being used for something else at the moment. And for years, our children, when they came to choir practice, if they wanted to go to the bathroom mid-rehearsal, they would have to go outside into the public space, and they never knew just who they might find in the bathrooms. So that was what drove us. The unsuitability of the rehearsal room was really the pushing force that we need a good space to nurture our musicians and to make it available for the whole community to use. So the choir center, the music center, will be under the Great Hall, where we will rearrange the walls, which we can do down there because it was originally one big space, and create a functional rehearsal space with acoustically appropriate ceiling and flooring, robing space, and bathrooms that are secure, and it will all be accessible and usable for any group in the community. So that's what we're working on at the moment, and there's a major gifts campaign underway, and we've had 100% participation from the leadership of the parish and those who've signed on to be on the steering committee for the major gifts campaign. If you have not yet been approached and you might have the capacity to make a major gift towards the music centre, please have a word with Richard or me. We would love to share our beautiful, shiny presentation with you and get you as excited as we are. And then after the holidays and after the annual pledge campaign, we'll be opening it up to the whole parish and inviting you to give any amount, any gift, any pledge over 3 years, because we want everyone to have an opportunity to be a part of this great project. And for the first time in these 153 years, I think our choirs will finally feel like they're properly valued, and they have a space that's safe for our children, and that is available for the whole parish and beyond the parish. So I mentioned money already. Pledging is underway. If you haven't yet pledged, I invite you to make your pledge soon. You can make it online or fill out the card that you would have got in the mail. If you didn't get one in the mail, we have packets available and cards available. If you walked in through the north porch this morning, you saw our giant fish banner that's the symbol of this year's pledge campaign. And we're already 25% of the way to our goal, which is fantastic in the second week. We would love to far exceed the goal to try and fill the gap that we're anticipating between our expected revenue and our expected expenses. Pledging over the last few years, the dollar amount has remained pretty flat across the parish. Fewer people have pledged, but those who have pledged more, thank goodness, thank you very much. So we're hoping to broaden that. We really would like to expand our pledge base. We depend on the pledges for about 60% of our income, our annual income. Our total budget's about $1.8 million. And we draw on revenue from our endowed or invested funds, I should say. They're not true endowments. And also revenue from outside groups, rentals, and bequests and so forth to fill the gap. And we're a little bit concerned about the gap that we're looking at. This space is wonderful and everything's electric. You know, that we can't turn off the AC and open the windows in this in the new space. When you walk into a room, the lights come on, the printer wakes up, the AC comes on. It's all magic, and it's all utility cost. So we're still living into the reality of having more space than we used to have. I mean, every square foot, of course, of space costs us something. So I just want to encourage that you will pledge what you can for the annual operating fund. It's a labor of love for me to handwrite thank you notes to everyone who pledges. And it's a big job for me in October and November every year, but I enjoy it. It's the least I can do, and I've enjoyed writing the first 41 thank you letters so far this year. Look forward to writing at least 250 more. One of the big expenses that we have is our diocesan share. It's called the Common Life Share. And this is, in some places they might call it a tax or an assessment, but we give money to the diocese. Every parish contributes to the diocese because the diocese doesn't have its own pledge base. And that supports Charlotte, our wonderful youth minister who's preaching today, and of course the bishop's staff, and a lot of ministries that go on at the diocesan level. And it's based on our revenue. It's 10.5%. That's the minimum we're asked for. 10.5% of last year's unrestricted revenue. We're looking at pledge. We've already had to make our pledge to the diocese for next year. It's over $200,000 that we'll be giving to the diocese. With joy, because the bishop is such an important part of our identity, and we gain so much from being part of the diocese. But nevertheless, it's a big chunk for us to give, and that's the minimum. We are also invited to make additional gifts for designated ministries at the diocesan level. It's called the Common Life Share Plus, CLS Plus. And some churches will pledge a certain amount for each of those designated ministries. We've chosen to say we will give a small percentage of unrestricted bequests that come in as our additional CLS. We feel that generally when we receive a legacy, it's found money. It's not money we were counting on or budgeting for, and so it seems like a good way for us to fulfill that CLS Plus. Generally, not always. We received a bequest last year that it's very considerable, and the revenue, if we invest it, the income from it just makes up for the very considerable pledge we used to get from that household. So that balances out. But that's just a reality of who we are as Episcopalians. We support the diocese and, of course, the new building. Question?
The Kroger Company, I found out at...
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
At 58th University Foods for Less, they have a program to help the churches, and you know, you've got the program for the poor here. They come in to... You have the program for the poor that come in here to eat, get clothing and things like that. And they have a program where they assist in the food so you don't have to pay for it. And if that would help the church, that's fine. Everyone, it's a great program. I've already talked to 2 churches.
Yeah, good. Well, we do have, as you said,
prices up.
Yeah, we have an outreach.
It was hurting the one church over here, and it was hurting the other church.
Thank you, Donna. Let me respond to that, please. We do not need them to give us food, but we do send people who need food to these other ministries. Those of you who don't know, we have a monthly ministry, a really important one called Showers of Blessings, where we offer showers using the cart, the trailer you can see back there, and breakfast, and we give out clothing, and we offer free haircuts. And we do this in partnership with our friends Voices of our City Choir, who also offer showers every Thursday, and with the Methodists, the First United Methodist Church. They bring the breakfast. So it's an ecumenical ministry, and it's a real anchor to our outreach ministries. We've developed great relationships with the unsheltered population. We know a lot of folks by name, which helps us all actually feel safer. And it's a meaningful ministry for many people. You can just show up on usually the second Saturday of the month. It goes from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. They start early. Claudia Dixon leads it, and Sharon Semple helps to lead it, and they bring out all the equipment very early in the morning. And if you are a morning person, they'd love to have your help, I know. And I come and meet some of our neighbours. It's something that fulfills a need for us and for our neighbours in the park. So we're glad to keep doing showers of blessings. In November, it will be the third Saturday of the month, because we are hosting the Diocesan Convention this year, which will be Veterans Day weekend, the 10th and 11th of November. It's the 50th anniversary of our diocese, becoming a diocese, splitting off from Los Angeles. So it's a special time. I know John Will is working on a big archival display, and it's very appropriate that this significant anniversary should be celebrated here at the Diocesan Cathedral. There'll be a big dinner in the cathedral, similar to what we did for our 150th anniversary gala dinner. Something we can do because we don't have the pews anymore, so we can just move the chairs out of the way and put tables in. That, I believe, is sold out, the Friday night dinner, but Saturday morning there will be a Eucharist at 9 a.m. All are invited to come, and it'll still be set up with tables and chairs, so it'll be kind of like having a dinner party again on Saturday morning, but it'll be the Diocesan Eucharist. And we'd love to have you come and help out with hospitality. As you know, it can be hard to find your way around this campus, and signs can only do so much. And to have a whole lot of people, we'll have some way of identifying you, a hat or a bandana or something, so people will know who to ask. Where is the guild room? Where are the bathrooms? Those sorts of questions. How do I get back to the parking garage? We've all been there. So an opportunity there, Friday the 10th, Saturday the 11th, to come and meet other people from around the diocese and help us out a little bit with the hospitality. And then on the 12th of November, Sunday the 12th, we have our Veterans Day Evensong, which is always a special event. And our guest preacher for that will be the new Bishop for the Armed Forces, Anne Ratonia, who's just been consecrated as Bishop. So it'll be a grand weekend. That weekend will be the beginning of Advent for us here at St. Paul's. Normally, Advent is 4 Sundays leading up to Christmas, as I'm sure you know. Beginning of the church year is the beginning of Advent. This year, the 4th Sunday of Advent happens to fall on Christmas Eve, which makes it a very short, compressed season. And there are a lot of things we like to do in Advent. And there exists a minority tradition in the church of having a 7-week Advent to mirror Lent. And so we're going to try that. This is a good year to try that out. Tom Simmons has made us special Advent wreaths for the church and the chapel that fit 7 candles around the outside. And we will start to move into an Advent mode on November 12th. And that way we're not scrunching up all the events like the Advent procession, which is a sort of lessons and carols for Advent, or the lessons and carols for Christmas, the Messiah Sing, the Alternative Gifts Expo, and the ingathering of pledges. It's just a lot to fit in. So we'll try it out, see if we like having a longer Advent. We take a breath. Any questions on your minds at this point? Anne?
I was wondering, speaking of all our new space, what is happening on our leasing our ground floor space?
Thank you. Good question. This space is technically owned by an LLC that is a wholly owned subsidiary of the cathedral. It's not owned by the cathedral itself. And we did that. We transferred the land, this half of the campus, to that LLC 20 years ago to facilitate the sale so that we could do this building. It's much easier to work with a developer if you're not having to say, well, we own it in trust for the diocese or for the national church. So we made that decision long before my time. Finally, this project came to fruition, as you know, and it was built. The LLC consists of 5 managers, including myself and our treasurer, Betsy Monsell, and 3 other parishioners. Along the way, one of our decisions was that we didn't need to use all of the square footage that we were getting in this deal for our own ministries, and that we could use the revenue of rentals. So the part of this floor that faces Fifth Avenue is, you've probably noticed, it's an empty shell, an unfinished shell right now. That is designated for a commercial tenant. And we've been working for several years now to finalize a lease. We've had we're on to our 3rd potential tenant, and typically it's restaurants that are interested in this space, and we've worked. As I say, we had 2 that we got a certain way along, and then it fell through for one reason or another. Not anything to do with us, but we're working. We're negotiating right now with a 3rd tenant. It's someone who we think has a good track record in the city, and we're hoping that we'll sign a lease with them very soon. But it's going to take a while before we see any revenue from that. They have a lot of work to do to finish out the space, to put in things like a grease trap or a commercial hood and all the fittings and fixtures that you want in a restaurant. We will give them a tenant improvement allowance, a large amount of money, which we received from Greystar when they built this building. It's all part of the typical deal. Where you want to bring in a tenant into an empty space, you have to help them fit it out. And of course, when the lease ends and they leave, you have the fittings. As the landlord, you keep the fittings and fixtures. So we'll be paying out some money if this tenant sticks. And then it'll take them probably a year to do the construction. It used to be that you could get a construction project done relatively quickly in this city and get the permits within 3 months. That's no longer the case. It takes up to a year to work through the city bureaucracy now. So it's going to be a while, but we remain fixed on the long-term goal of having steady income from that space and a good neighbour. And just keep praying that this deal works out, please. We'd love to see that be solid. And it's yet another form of evangelism, bringing a whole different group of people onto our campus. They'll be parking in the garage, some of them, and they'll be seeing St. Paul's, and we hope that will attract more people to come and join our wonderful, loving community. So that's where we are with the tenant search. When you start to see things happening in that space, that's when you can get really excited. And we can't talk in public about who that tenant is until we've actually signed a lease and we have a legal commitment. If they do sign a lease, this happened to the 2nd tenant, they signed a lease and then they discovered it wasn't going to work out. But we get to keep some money when that happens. So it wasn't as painful as it might have been. But it is frustrating that it's taking so long. It's just the world we live in. Just one more plug about evangelism. The music program is enormously successful as an evangelistic tool. We have a chamber music series, a monthly chamber music series in the Great Hall, and we had the first one of this season on last Saturday. Yes, last Saturday. It was 2 people singing, husband and wife, wonderful light-hearted songs and piano accompaniment, and about 80% of the audience were not cathedral people. Mm-hmm. So it works. It brings people in. It was quite amusing. We asked for a suggested donation. We don't say you must pay X, but we invite a suggested donation of $20, and almost everybody was happy to give $20. One attendee gave us $5, and we don't argue. And at the end of the concert, she came back and said, "Oh, that was worth 20," and she gave us a 20. And she didn't ask for the 5 back. So people they're drawn in, and we give them something wonderful, and they stick around. The next concert is on November 18th, and that is solo piano. And Martin speaks very highly of the pianist, and we have this incredible instrument. We had this Steinway sent away and rebuilt, and it's really gorgeous, and to hear it played by a master will be a great treat. Then we take a break. December, we don't try to do a concert. And the January concert, January 20th, will be a piano quartet recital, and that will be me and my friends. I'll be playing the viola, and I hope that you will come to that as well, and then the season will continue. There will also be some post-evensong recitals and concerts, organ concerts, or concerts involving the organ, in addition to our Friday 1 p.m. Organ recitals. So watch for those, and come and enjoy the gem that we have here. That organ is an extraordinary instrument. As I said, the choirs are amazing. There's nothing better than singing in that space. I can personally attest. So I think that's all I can think of to update you on. What would you like to hear about? Jill?
I remember there was some discussion about a social service type area that we provide services to.
Right, thank you. Yes, when we did the listening campaign 2 years ago about what might we do a capital project for, we talked about the music centre, we talked about an outreach centre underneath the chapel where there's a lot of space not being well used, and we also talked about a welcome area right in the centre here, the crossbar of the H between the Great Hall and the church, creating a big open wide welcome centre there. And we asked a lot of parishioners what would be your priority, and music came out top, which is why we're doing the campaign now for the music centre. Outreach wasn't far behind, and we don't have the capacity to do both. That whole 3-part vision was $12.5 million, so that made us pause. But I'm very hopeful. What's happened in the meantime, as we focused on the music, is that thanks to Richard Hogue, we now have Voices of Our City choir installed in the offices under the Great Hall. We will find space for them to stay when we do the construction. We're very committed to that partnership. And they are providing a lot of the sort of outreach services that we imagined doing. And my long-term hope is that we will find a way to provide a permanent home for voices in that space, and that will become the outreach centre. And it will answer one of the questions that kept coming up, which was, you can create space for an outreach centre, but how are you going to staff it? And they have the expertise and the staff, so perhaps we can all work together as we move forward, because this partnership is working out really well. Those of you who came last night to our fun stewardship event heard the Voices of Our City sing and heard testimonials. If you don't know, it's a choir for unsheltered people, but anybody can come and sing with them. You don't have to be unsheltered to sing. That provides services to help people find housing, find jobs, get their lives back on track. And they've got a very good track record. And just singing in a choir can do incredible things for your self-esteem and dignity. And they're very talented people. They're writing their own songs. A lot of them sing solos. It's wonderful. I do recommend that if you haven't heard them, that you find an opportunity. So who knows? God is moving among us. And 2 years ago, I had no idea that we were going to get Voices of Our City here. And I can't believe how this has all come together. So stay tuned.
I have just a comment. I was clerk in the vestry in the chapter for 25 years, and always was aware of our dues to the diocese. I've never felt better than I do now about what we are doing to help the diocese, because I feel that our diocese now is much more active than I ever remembered it being. And all of you, if you get the weekly, I think it's
Weekly, every Wednesday. Yeah.
email from the EDSC, Episcopal Diocese of San Diego, read it. There is a lot going on for the diocese to make us feel really good about helping support.
Good, thank you for saying that. Our bishop she's got great vision, great energy, very creative, and she's hired a whole bunch of missioners, military, border mission, Christian formation, there's another one.
College.
College, she's focusing on college ministries. And you heard most of them preach while I was on sabbatical. And Jason, evangelism. So there are a lot of initiatives going on. There are 2 new church plants already. One is in Oceanside, where there used to be an Episcopal church, and it fell by the wayside some years ago. St. Bridget's. And then in Ocean Beach, where the diocesan offices are, which used to be a parish church, and the congregation left during the schism in 2007, they have restarted a church there, called it the Church of the Resurrection, because it's coming back. So there's a lot of energy, and at Diocesan Convention we're going to hear a lot about the bishop's dreams and visions and hopes too. Yeah, so thank you. And you mentioned being clerk of the chapter. Thank you for that ministry. Tom Barb is our great clerk these days. Chapter is our board of directors. It consists of 16 people. I'm the president. There are 12 who are elected from within the parish. And then there are 2 diocesan representatives elected at convention and 1 bishop's warden, the bishop's eyes and ears, appointed by the bishop to be a part of the chapter. And then we have the clerk and the treasurer, Betsy, who's amazing. And our chancellor is also amazing, Andrew Brooks. So our officers. And we have our elections to chapter. We elect 4 people every year to a 3-year term. And the election's coming up in January. We will also be electing someone to finish out an incomplete term of 1 year. So there are 5 spots, and the last I heard we have 8 candidates already, which is great. It's a good sign of our vitality that people are willing to step forward and take a risk, because an election, when there are more candidates than spots, it's always a risk, and I'm very aware of how that's not for everyone, to risk not being elected. I'm very grateful for those who are brave enough to step forward. And chapter, there are many bad stories out there about church vestries, which is what a regular parish church calls its board of directors, about toxic relationships and endless meetings and arguments. And we don't have that experience here. It's a congenial group. We have lively discussions, but we come to consensus. We work together very well. 3/4 of our meetings are on Zoom now, because people have to travel. People sometimes serving who live in Escondido, for instance. So we try to make it as convenient as possible, but we come together in person periodically. So let me know, let Darian, our Dean's Warden, or Kimberly Fernandez, our People's Warden, know if you're interested in learning more about chapter service. It really does give you the inside track on everything that's going on. You get about 12 reports every month. Is there anything else? No? Well, thank you for your kind attention, and I hope you feel filled in on what's going on. Just one last thing. We had Jim Murphy from the Episcopal
Church Foundation.
Thank you, Richard. Come last month, and he spoke at our Legacy Society celebration. The Legacy Society is those parishioners who have put us in your will or trust in your estate planning. Let us know if you have, because we don't know by magic unless you let us know, but we'd like to honour you. Jim lives on the East Coast, goes all over the church, speaking at churches. He knows the big picture of the Episcopal Church, and he was at pains to say that St. Paul's is an exceptionally vital and active and healthy congregation. So feel good about yourselves, because when you look across the Episcopal Church, we're doing really well. So thank you.